And we're live. All right. That AC unit kicked out at
that was
the perfect time.
Remember we had the leaf blower going on out here? That guy kept walking by. Come on, dude.
You know, back before he got all political, JP Sears had some really funny videos.
Who's JP Sears?
He was what was his whole like shtick? He wore like a purple shirt. It was, oh my God, I can't remember the name of his like station. He did like just like comedy and whatnot about being like super.
I probably would recognize him.
Hold on, I have to look this up because it's going
JP
to
Sears.
kill me. Hold on. And then he the problem is he did some like really politically things.
Oh sure. Did he go off of that? Was he not political anymore now? Or
no, he's
super political now.
Now, yeah, it's almost like he got a lot of views during COVID on it, and then he just went hard with it.
Into it.
Yeah, JP Sears. It says Awaken with JP, but that was not his old name. It was something else. Oh, listeners, help us out here. Someone's probably screaming at their microphone or their speaker right now. It was like, dang. Okay. Anyways, ultra spiritual. That's what it was.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. That one was really bothering me. Okay. So last episode of season 2.
Yes, season 2.
We discussed Skyrim. We were talking about Skyrim, skill trees, ways to think about it. Levi's laying out some Jeremy Seol for us. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Yep.
I heard, so I didn't go into it too much, but I remember there's some YouTube documentary I saw that was like some apparently not so good things about Jeremy.
Oh, bummer.
And then I was like, I'm going to stop watching.
Yeah. Don't wreck it. Don't wreck it.
Because I think I'm going to keep hearing his music. Like his music, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear anything. That's like the whole Rick and Morty stuff.
Yeah.
It's, come on, man. You guys have some good things going on here, and you have to go wreck it.
It is hard to separate like the person from the creation. I do have a hard time with that sometimes.
It's a little bit like, especially in Jiu-Jitsu world too, is the same thing. There's some really extreme personalities when it comes to Jiu-Jitsu, and it's like tough because I think there's maybe one or two I can think off the top of my head of people that probably can teach some pretty cool things, but I almost just don't watch just because it's the person. And I've always made that argument with people with things like someone doesn't like Tom Cruise or something. So he can still have good acting. It doesn't mean that you like his personal life or whatever.
Yeah,
it's
agree
like,
with his life philosophy.
But his skill set is different from the person itself. But yeah,
It's tough.
It's just tough to separate it sometimes.
Yeah, you almost have to like compartmentalize it. It's hard too with something where it's somebody's face.
Yeah,
that's a hard one.
Yeah,
because every time you see them, then you're like, dude. Versus being like a painting, I feel like I could give the most latitude on for some dumb reason.
Sure.
You're not right where you look at a beautiful painting or something, you'd be like, wow, that's a crazy painting. Be like, yeah, the guy who did this was crazy. He was out of his head.
Yeah. You're like, oh, it looks cool.
Oh, yeah, he was a good painter as far as it goes. But for some reason, certain other forms of art where it's really important to you.
Music or something.
Yeah, or books you really like.
Yeah.
You want to know that the person's cool.
Yeah. People like, was it Nikola Tesla that came up with a lot of amazing ideas, and then it's like his own personality was weird, or
I think he was just taking advantage of Tesla. At least according to some of the stuff in Robert Greene's books, he was just a brilliant dude, and Edison sounds like he took advantage of him, and he even turned down a Nobel Prize, I think, that they had to share.
Yeah.
And instead of giving him any notoriety, he just turned it down.
Yeah.
And wouldn't agree to it or something, and then so it stopped Tesla from getting it, which is weird because if I'm thinking of it properly, then Tesla should have just gotten it.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a better way to put it.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're off topic.
Surprise.
Going on with our theme of gaming. Our topic today is actually, we're going from RPGs, which were last week, to this week, we're talking a little bit more about FPSs.
Is it FPS?
First-person shooters.
Oh, I thought we were doing the God of War.
No, it was FPS. I texted you.
No, I remember. I still have stuff for that one. I just remember you were like so jazzed to want to talk about that one.
Oh yeah, I'm saving it.
We're good.
You don't need dessert first thing, bruh. Unless you're an adult, in which case
subscribe.
I do.
It's gonna be some good stuff coming your way.
But yeah, and actually, I ended up having this thought when I was playing Halo with my son, with one of my boys.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, my newborn's not playing Halo, but the other one is.
Sometimes I listen to the cinematics of Halo, like the cutscenes of Halo, more so than reading a book or something.
Really? Just throw it on the background?
Oh, it's so good. Like Halo 2 cinematics are fantastic. If you
pretty
ever played like the Arkham Asylum. I know I was telling you about Arkham Asylum, but like
I started playing it.
Some games have way better like movie storylines than like movies themselves. Like the Halo
God of War
cinematics are way better than like the Halo TV series.
Unless you're talking about Red versus Blue, which was hilarious.
That's always the best one. But I'm saying like the depth that goes into some of that, it's really good. So even just like the shooter game is fantastic, but just even like the quotes and the storylines, like I can go on about that. It's so good.
There's actually a really funny line I remember from Halo 2. What's the name of the sergeant? The sergeant who's like really like he's just fed up.
He's got a cigar in his mouth.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey there, recruits." That guy. Yeah, what's his name? Do you remember his name?
Sergeant. I'm horrible with names. Sergeant.
It's something super simple too, like Jones or something.
Johnson.
Maybe it's Johnson. I don't know. But he's, you guys are lucky. You got all these fancy weapons. Back in my day, we had a stick and a rock, and we had to share the rock. I love that line. That nailed it.
I always like the mind grave in Halo 2, like the big tentacle looking thing. He always had a great quote. I was like, "This is not your grave, but you are welcome in it." And I was like, I always think about that with submissions that like I didn't mean to catch.
Tentacles would be helpful.
But you are welcome in it.
Anyway, so did you play a lot of Halo when you were younger?
The first Halo was always crazy because it was like on PC. Like it was like one of those like starter games where it looks like cool first person shooter, and then it was amazing.
Oh, you played it on PC?
Yeah.
Oh, I played it on a computer. Sorry, Xbox.
And then Halo 2 was on Xbox as well. So
I remember Halo 2 coming out.
I had the household that I had a PlayStation at the time instead of an Xbox.
Okay.
So I had to go to my friend's house he was super big into the Halo series, so I had to go to his house to play Halo. But then we'd just be playing multiplayer the whole time. Blood Gulch the whole time.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun things you can do with that. It's the campaign, the multiplayer for campaign's cool too.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's see. How does this apply to Jiu-Jitsu? How do first-person shooters
Are you
apply?
thinking like Halo first-person shooter, or are you thinking like Counter-Strike?
Some of these apply to both.
This is my age. I'm saying Counter-Strike instead of like Call of Duty.
Counter-Strike's awesome.
Counter-Strike was my jam.
Did you know in Goat Simulator 3, because I was playing that because my son really likes it, they actually had a Dust 2 Easter egg in there, and I was in it. I was like, this looks like Dust, and I was...
Oh, like the map?
Yeah,
Dust
yeah,
2?
they have an Easter egg in there, and I was like, this, I swear I've seen this map like 25 years ago.
Wow.
And sure enough, I looked it up, and I'm like, it is. So there you go. That's there instead of something Dust like, 2. Algebra 2. Nope, not in there. But I do know the map of Dust. But...
yeah, The Office was pretty good too. The Office.
Oh yeah, that one was really good. I forgot about that one. Yeah. You could go through the vents.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. But yeah, so how does this apply? Okay, I personally have 3 concepts that I really think can help people's jiu-jitsu, that I've seen the similarities between grappling and playing first-person shooters.
Sure.
And so I'll start with the first one. And this was actually a tip my friend Tim, who was insane at Halo, he probably still is, gave me when I was like learning how to play Halo back in the day. And one of the things he talked about is like, never run backwards. He's like, don't ever run backwards. It just seems like it just doesn't work. And the funny thing is, it doesn't. Like if you try playing Halo or other first-person shooters, shooting and running backwards just doesn't work that great.
Yeah, it's weird.
Instead, you want to run up on people, which sounds weird because you're getting closer to them shooting at you, unless you're like taking cover and doing something tactical or whatever. Like that's a different scenario. But if you're in like a firefight and you're playing Halo, keep moving forward. And so I thought that was interesting because as Jordan's been teaching us wrestling, one of the things was he talks about how it penalizes you moving backwards and how you actually, not only from a rule standpoint, but also from just getting tripped up. Like somebody will get your legs a lot easier if you're moving backwards. Mm-hmm. Instead, you're supposed to circle. You do a lot of circling and moving forward in wrestling. And that was a big epiphany to me that I've been trying to apply. It's like, it reminded me of Bernanke's alignment principles, but in standing, it's move forward and circle. And don't ever move backwards, except for a step if you have to like sprawl or something like that. And in first-person shooters, when you're running up on someone, know what's funny, know what you do? I realized this when I was playing with my son the other day. You circle, brah. Yeah. You run up. Yeah. Don't run backwards. You run forward and you circle around as you're shooting. Like you're doing the whole time. You're going... yeah. And you just keep... because you're also cutting an angle on them. Yeah. And it makes it harder to track. Overkill. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting because I think my last tournament, I was thinking how I was moving. And yeah, it was a lot of circling. It feels weird to back up. Because you can almost like trip over yourself too of just going backwards, like you're not as coordinated versus going side to side and flanking. Almost a little bit like maybe that's
maybe that is the word. Yeah,
like you flank their side instead of having to back up.
Yeah, think about all the places that circling applies better than backing up. Backing up is disengaging, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes it works. Getting your foot out of something.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of a time in jiu-jitsu you'd want to actually just back up.
Yeah, even if you're sprawling, your lower body's backing up, but your upper body's going forward.
If you're playing bottom game, you do back up a little bit sometimes to get your space.
Yeah, but that's still being like super defensive.
Yeah.
Versus like trying to engage and come forward. So I could see that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The circling thing. I know folks who know how to wrestle, this probably doesn't sound profound, but that was a profound thing to me. Circling. Yeah, and I've been trying to think, okay, when I pass, how do I circle? How do I do this tightest circle I can around somebody?
Why would you? I think at the beginning phases, I was working with Jordan, I was like backing up. He's like, yeah, don't back up because it's just the legs are just right there for me to start grabbing.
It's like on the pit, too, at CJI. Yeah. When you back up and your hip hits the pit, then your hips pass your feet.
Yeah.
Like you get your feet and it's game over. It seems like if you get stuck on that pit, bad news.
I can see that. It's moving forward.
Yeah. Okay, before I go on to my next concept, because we're going way faster than I thought we would. I was really hoping I could milk a little more time out of that one.
No, it makes sense.
What do you have?
I think if I take the tone a little bit from our previous episode, even in FPS stuff, there's skill sets of like long distance type things, which is weird because especially when I'm thinking about like Counter-Strike, how people approach the game with a variety of weapons.
Yeah.
And it comes down to a little bit like when people talk, I'll have this a little bit in the future with fighting games, but basically picking your own playstyle. Like not everyone comes in there with the exact same weapon. There's advantages and disadvantages. Like some people would have a sniper or some people would have a close-up weapon or something like that. And I think it just depends on your style and accuracy. That was always one of the greatest things with FPS games was like no scope shots.
Yeah.
Just like you have a sniper, but you just aren't looking down the scope and aiming.
You're jumping, like, no scope.
Yeah,
those
just
free fall
be able to use it.
Too.
So I think a lot of times when you are playing those kind of games, it's like you better do a good job having the far distance game. Otherwise, people are going to get up close to you. And now you have this long distance weapon you can't use as effectively. And there's a ton of weapons, especially in Counter-Strike, where you can, it's almost like an assault rifle, I think. I can't remember the name of it, like MK something. But it's like works very well because it's a little bit of mixture of close contact and far distance as well. Like you can aim and get there. Do you ever see people with mark their screens?
I feel like my friend actually did that.
So they never scoped it. Like they just marked where it would be. And then also they can no scope and they would just follow it on the screen. So it was like always accurate.
Who was ridiculous at Counter-Strike?
What's that?
I'm not going to say his last name, but it's a guy we both know. Jeremy. He was in a bad accident when he was in middle school, and he ended up having to like have part of his skull taken out and everything like that. Great guy. One of the sweetest dudes you'll ever meet. And he like couldn't leave the house for a while because he was essentially missing part of his skull, had the skin obviously over it, and he had to wear a helmet. And his eyes were like trying to get back in order. It was a big deal, folks. He almost died. And he was just stuck at home. So he started playing a lot of Counter-Strike. And he got so unbelievably good at it because he like essentially made it his full-time job.
Oh, I can see.
And he was a middle schooler. So like middle schoolers stuck at home. You can't do anything. What are you going to do? Play a lot of Counter-Strike.
Did you ever go to the computer meetup places?
No, I was terrible at Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at PC gaming. I'm terrible at it.
I've done it a couple times, but I knew a couple friends who were always like looking into it to be like, oh, we can be like professional, play video games and make money, go to tournaments. I still have that thought sometimes. Not so much myself, but like a hosting type thing. Imagine like this room right here.
That'd be
like
cool.
You set up tables and whatever and have a professional type of thing.
You're going to get Mountain Dew everywhere, dude.
Yeah, sure, true. But like something where it's, I think so many people, especially back in the day with consoles, like always thought they were fantastic. And I think that was one of the nice things about Counter-Strike or any FPS games. Like it was so readily available to just have matches and compete. You know, you didn't really have it. There wasn't really so much online gameplay at the time with fighting games like Street Fighter or something like that. But like FPS games were constant. And maybe that's come a good correlation with combat with Jiu-Jitsu because with Counter-Strike, like you could practice over and over and over again and find the weapons you enjoy.
Yeah.
Get to study the map very well.
Yeah, smaller maps.
You know, figure things out, know the angles, know the spots people hide. Like you needed time, but what was cool was it's such a quick reset all the time. Like you get shot and then you reset and respawn, and you can constantly do it over and over again. And maybe this is something cool because it's my brain rattling right now, but you don't you don't get exposed as like Matthew Bartman. You have like your username, Noob Master 69 or something. It's like having like your disguise as this ninja. You kind of have this avatar of yourself, so you can win and fail without really any big like drawbacks. So you can sit there and just be like on a private server or whatever, and you could just get really good. So you being in front of friends and being other people or having guilds or whatnot, like you could rack your way up with just wins. And especially in Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike was big because on the matches after the match was done, it would have like your kills.
Your KDD ratio.
Yeah, so how much that happened. And I think over time, the goal is to switch it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're tapped being not tapped.
So I think that's the idea that I think in the beginning, it sucks. But like, how would you get good at FPS games then?
If what?
I don't know, just in general, like if you had a tactic.
Keep playing them. I think you have to find weapons that suit you. You touched on that just now. So just like in Jiu-Jitsu, you got to find weapons that suit you.
Yeah.
Just because something worked really well for someone doesn't mean it will work well for you.
Yeah.
Case in point, I'll use a Jiu-Jitsu analogy and an FPS analogy. So in Halo 1, like my friend Tim and a lot of other guys who were actually like decent at the game, they were just awesome with the pistol. It's like the most OP weapon in like any FPS game, I feel like. And you literally start out with it. So I had a really hard time, though. The reticle is really small. I had a much easier time with assault rifles. And I found when I switched to assault rifles, I was just radically better personally. I just had a hard time getting, I guess I just have bad thumb-eye coordination.
Yeah.
But that was a weapon that every stat across the board would say use the pistol.
Yeah.
I tried and I was just terrible at it. So I just switched my gun and I got a lot better. I had a much better result, I should say. And it's also a readily available weapon. So when we go to Jiu-Jitsu, there's moves that people will say, this is a really high quality move. For me, it's like triangles that are anywhere except for on my back. Like, honestly, like some from mount I can do, but just for the listeners who don't know what I look like, I'm like long in the limbs. Like I got long limbs. I'm built like a frog.
It's true.
Built like a frog and an orangutan. Got it on, and that's what their thing looked like. And it makes it it's a lot of work for me to be able to get my limbs into those places. And there's so much space. And I just can't tighten up the space enough. If I was like really jacked, maybe I could have enough muscle to my limb ratio to be able to
I think the tough
tighten that up.
Weapons though is that you could spend time working a weapon. Like right away, it might be weird having a rifle or whatever, but I think over time you can. But you almost have to get like tricks passed down. Same with Jiu-Jitsu. It's hard to sit and just use the same weapon over and over again. You're watching other people do crazy stuff with it, and you're like, how
when you die and you watch them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then you're like ghosting and watching a little bit.
You're like, oh, that's a good move.
But I think that's the thing, though. Like, same with other games we'll talk about in the future. Like, it's difficult to just play it and then come upon strategies. Yeah, there's obviously some people that get creative with it and figure it out. But I think over time, I think the real strength is your community and people around, like, asking questions with it. Like, it's weird. I don't know.
No, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
You're watching other people, do jiu-jitsu. You're watching like their setups, and especially the more the map, aka like understand a basic understanding of jiu-jitsu, the more you start to see setups.
It's funny, like when I go on Reddit, I would see posts constantly, like the BJJ subreddit, be like, what's one concept that like changed your thoughts on jiu-jitsu? What's the one thing? Like everyone's always looking for that gold nugget of like, what's the thing? Like I can imagine with any game where it's like, what's the one thing, like with Dark Souls or whatever, like that
roll, baby.
Yeah, that like changes. But it's tough because I think some people are coming back at it, especially with jiu-jitsu. It's like people had years of just trying stuff all on their own, like guys like Ryan Hall or whatever. We didn't have like books and instructionals and all these things. So to come with these ideas, it's like the video I shared with you the other day of like honers versus innovators.
Like, I still have to watch that.
It's this idea that like you're coming up with new strategies and new things and trying things versus the honers are like, here's a core strategy and let's just sit and perfect this strategy. Like you're not coming up with anything new. But I think that's where, especially in jiu-jitsu, like you have to have a mix of both. You have to have people who take what's there and really refine it. And you need the other group of people going, okay, keep looking at the horizon, keep finding new and innovative ways to make this happen. So you need a little bit of both. So especially people with FPS games, I'm sure there's go-to strategies, but there's people that need like new ways to approach it or new switch outs, or I don't know. There's got to be always that innovation to keep you competitive in that way.
What's funny about that? The whole honers versus, what was the other one? Innovators?
Innovators, yeah.
When I was younger, I noticed my cousin and I, we naturally fell into different categories for that because we used to make stuff a lot. Like, I come from a family that likes to make things, so everybody does, and we would make like weapons and stuff when I was a kid, or just like scrap lumber we'd like screw together.
We had pretend sticks and hayzackers. That's what
he would pretend stick. What?
Yeah, pretend weapons with sticks.
I did that too. Definitely, I had that, and I had like some things that I put a little more work into.
There you go.
But hey, don't ever disregard the quality of a good stick you find camping.
Yeah, it's just It's
but when I found a good one earlier this year, it's a solid stick. Good, it's a good sword stick, But I just noticed that he would always show up with something that he saw online they thought was cool, and he like replicated it. He was really good at replicating cool things he saw.
Sure.
On the other hand, I didn't really do that much, and it didn't interest me as much. I liked to make new things out of stuff. And they both have their benefits, and I bet you depending on the topic. Actually, now I'm wondering, I wonder if people naturally fall into one across the board more than others. Do you tend to replicate things?
Oh, sure.
Or do you tend to create things more? Both are great and really important, but even just in other categories of your life.
I think it depends on like where people fall, especially with like games. I think people who want to win very quickly, I think it's your win quickly time being involved in the activity is probably just taking things and replicating it. I think the innovators are people who just enjoy it as a thing and go, you know what? I wonder if I can play with this or try this. There's more patience with it versus like someone who wants to like get wins right now is going to look for the quickest, greatest strategy to win right now.
You know what's funny about this? My cousin's not going to listen, so I can tell you. He would always use like cheats in games to unlock everything. And I'd always, dude, what are you doing? Like the whole point of the game is to play the game. Like, no, man, I want the most leveled up armor right out of the gate.
Wasn't Halo one of the first games that had where you could purchase skins for the mark armors or whatever?
I don't remember.
I thought there was one that was like the samurai armor.
That wasn't one. I think that was 3 or later.
Or maybe it was 3 or later.
Because one, for online, it didn't have an online store.
No.
You actually had to use, oh my God, if I remember this, I'm going to freak. It was a website. It was something Connect. It was before Xbox Live even existed.
Oh, yeah.
And you could hook your Xbox to it, and then it would actually do matchmaking for you.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it was super cool.
There you go. There's another topic for this, like matchmaking.
Ooh.
For FPS games.
So I'm going to jump to concept 2, though.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I was just writing down notes.
Yeah. Okay. So concept 2 that I learned from FPSs, and I think it applies to Jiu-Jitsu, is don't get funneled.
Don't get funneled.
Yes. Don't get funneled. So in first-person shooters, you'll try to funnel your opponent. So using the Halo analogy, someone's behind something, you'll throw like a sticky grenade or a frag grenade on one side, knowing that it's going to bounce or stick close to them. If they stay there, they will explode. Yeah. If they go that way, they'll explode. So they have to go the other way. In which case, you're already waiting, baby. You got your crosshair up. You're just waiting for them to come over and to come out the way you knew that they had to go. And you're not always right. Sometimes they come up with a clever way to do something else. But that's something you don't want to have happen to yourself, and it's something you want to do to others, right?
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu is full of getting funneled.
I was thinking funnel in a different way. Did you ever do like spawn camping at all?
Oh, yeah. Where they just sit there and hit the person in the back of the head.
I'm thinking like, because in Counter-Strike, you can get all the way to the enemy's point where when people die and they
every spawn camp before at least once.
Yeah, but I'm saying like they spawn, at least I think with Counter-Strike, can't remember how the game. So like,
Counter-Strike didn't have spawns. Remember when you died, you had to wait for the match to end. Okay.
Sometimes there's one that they just kept going, and then the winner was like the most kills or whatever.
Oh yeah. It was like a death match.
But with deathmatch ones where you could keep respawning, but what happened was the 2 teams that went against each other, you'd respawn in like the same spot, in the same area. So it's not like you respawned randomly on the maps, different spaces. So people would go to like spawn points and wait for you to respawn and hit you. They're behind, and suddenly like, why did I die right away? But then you don't get a chance to do anything because the moment you're turning towards them, they're like hitting you right away.
Yep.
So something I was trying to think of correlating FPS with like spawn kills a little bit. I guess there's a little bit like that. It's a little bit like wrestling, probably is a good analogy in the opening games. Like you don't get a chance to do anything else in Jiu-Jitsu.
If they get momentum on you?
Well, I'm saying let's say, like, for example, Jordan's got a really good sweep single. Like, you don't get a chance to do any of your guard passing, any of your pins or submissions if he takes you down right away. So I think it's a little bit like that, where it's you don't even get a chance to even play your game. You're just done right away. It's not, you'll see a lot of jiu-jitsu matches, and I think maybe we've talked about this before, but you've experienced this as well, of like starting on your knees or starting on your hips or whatever. It's
combat based or whatever.
But you're like deeper into the game than maybe like you'd be at a tournament. A tournament, you like start standing, we're going to force ourselves down to a situation, but at least with two people, there's a good chance that they're combative with each other. There's maybe a 50-50 chance or whatnot. But if you could just spam that position over and over again, like you never get a chance to do the rest of the game. And that's where, like you said, with cheat codes, typically people will start calling cheats like that. I'm trying to think of other things.
You know what, though? I wouldn't say being able to hit your move, though, is like cheat, right? As far as in jiu-jitsu, you actually want to be like, you want to be the guy camping at somebody's spawn point. Like, you actually want that.
You want to be so good that people are calling hacks or bots.
Yeah. And you get kicked. You know?
That was the thing. Like, if you got so good, sometimes they'll think you're a bot. So
yeah, that happened to my friend Jeremy all the time.
You're like, the computer is basically controlling your character, and then you cross over, and then the computer like auto aim, basically an auto aim bot. So it always would somehow targeting on your computer, like it would target like the heads or whatever. So if you're like using cheat codes or whatever, they'd kick you from servers. But I say that because I think a lot of times in jiu-jitsu competitions, you will get people who have complaints because someone is so good in one area. It's, yeah, you lost, but like with Jordan, yeah, you lost, but he was a D1 wrestler. There's always like something that like takes away from the situation. No scope bots or whatever. There's always something where you're so good that people are just like, how else can you approach it? Like either you approach it by saying, wow, that person was a really good like player, or you go and play with somebody else.
I think that in that case, it's not the camping out. It's just that person can run the map and they just rock. That's I think the analogy there.
Then it becomes weird because I think if you get upset that someone's just rocking the map, that either you try to keep spamming the map and finding some way to beat that person, or ask them how they got so good. I don't know. Or, having to be like in different maps that like less, and I think that's what you're just talking about with matchmaking. I think it's a little bit too. Like you go against people who are appropriate skill level for yourself. But that's tough when it comes to like gyms and environments that you train at. Like you're going to get a variety of different people who, I think any combative, FPS is a start kind of some of our ideas, but like anybody that you have to contest against somebody, you're going to have a variety of skill sets that you're going up against.
So by the way, with the funneled thing, I also had in parentheses here, into a hallway. Funny story about this. So you never want to get into like a firefight in a hallway. That's like, you just get destroyed. Especially, and I learned that back in the Halo days because I was using a weapon that didn't have great range. So if anybody showed up in a long hallway, I was like, uh-oh. And like, I would just be a goner because there's no way I could go hide.
Right. Can't move.
You can only run forward into their gun, and you can't, like, beating somebody in a hallway is tough in that scenario when they have a better weapon, like a better ranged weapon, and they're just obviously a better player than you. So this is something I knew intrinsically, and a funny side story tangent. So I saw Rob O'Neill speak last year. He came to a work thing. Rob O'Neill is the guy who shot the bullet who took out Osama bin Laden.
Well, yeah, I think I understand that.
Yeah, he was like he was on like SEAL Team 6 and whatnot. He was like the SEAL of SEALs kind of deal. Really funny guy, by the way. Very funny. But he actually said during his speech, he was talking about some training thing. He's like, yeah, you never want to get in a firefight in a hallway. And I was like, I knew that one thing. Actually, no, I was more so surprised. I'm like, oh yeah, that would apply to real life too. Dramatically more, higher stakes. But I just thought it was just funny. Like that was like, oh yeah, Halo taught me that. Like that one little tidbit. And it was just because you never really think of, up to that point, I wasn't thinking about how video games taught me how to do something. Not that it taught me how to do it, but it was just funny that there was a parallel.
Life application.
And the fact that this dude who's like a stud with a gun was like, yeah, don't do that. And I'm like, hey, he'd probably go to Halo.
I could have taught you that.
He could be, maybe he's awesome at Halo.
Yeah. That's
but
funny.
I just thought it was funny.
Funnel.
Okay. Are you ready for concept 3?
I think so.
Okay. You touched on this a little bit.
Okay.
But I think this is slightly different. It's choose the correct weapon for the situation. First-person shooters, like you were touching on before, there's various ranges and like speed of weapon. And there's stuff that's like kind of good, most of the time, but not as good in a really far kind of thing. And I just thought that really does apply though to jiu-jitsu because skill, size, fatigue, those all play into it. if you're versing a big boss, don't be trying out new weapons. You got to use like your tried and true. If you're going against some noobs, that's when you try some new weapons out. If you're a noob, you get stuff tried out on you.
If you're in Blood Gulch, you forget all that noise, and you go up the cliffside, and you find a phantom. You hop in the phantom, and you rain fire down on everybody. I was just thinking that the whole time, like you're talking about weapons. I'm like, there's like vehicles you can use in there too, like the Warthog.
Yeah. Did you ever put it by the doors in Blood Gulch so it creates a door that stays?
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, you actually can do the flip button to open the door.
Oh, funny.
But it slows people down a little bit getting in your fortress when you're playing Capture the Flag.
Capture the Flag, I was going to say.
Yep.
But yeah, there's like tanks that you can do and like flying weapon or flying vehicles and things like that. Like I was just thinking how different that is, like how that throws. I don't think there's a big correlation with jiu-jitsu, but maybe like the weapons are like the heavyweight people, like these big guys having to utilize tactics.
If you have a sniper rifle, though, the tank's actually not that great because you can get sniped out of the tank.
Oh, yeah, because there's like a little window, I think you can
and it's very slow. It's still fun to drive around, though.
Yeah. That's funny.
But yeah, so anyways, I was thinking about choosing the correct submission, though, for the opponent. Because if you had to verse someone who is like double your weight, Kimura's might not be at the top of the list.
Yeah. Roy Dean had told me that. He said by the time you hit brown belt, you should already be pretty proficient at looking at someone in the room and switching out your utility belt of what you're going to use on them. Like at that point, you're not sitting here going, I just play my A game over and over again. Like you're switching out like your gear. You're not sitting here going, I'm playing my same game. Like you're adapting now to each person. It might not be like a strong suit, but like you're switching like, oh, here's a intense wrestler. Like how am I going to manage that person? This person weighs more than 100 pounds heavier than me, but they're a white belt. How am I going to manage that person?
So or someone smaller than you, but really technical.
Yeah. So I think at those kind of points, like you have to be experienced enough to realize like how they're adjusting. But I think a lot of times too, that especially with weapons, with FPS games, like you are being so proficient in one weapon that sometimes you can even beat people who are decently proficient at weapons that may beat you. Like I don't need to worry about a shotgun if I'm all the way back here, or I already know my map really well, or things like that versus a big open field or something.
Do you think sometimes, though, you just don't have your favorite weapon available, too?
Yeah, there's that element, too, depending on like the games you play. I was trying to think of some of the games. There's a fun game I was
meaning in Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, in Jiu-Jitsu. I'll say one thing quick. Counter-Strike has a game where, what was it? You start out with knives, and then you work your way up to the top weapon, and then you work your way all the way down to the last weapon. I think the last weapon was like, it's a knife. But so let's say there's a team of 12 and team of 12. We all got knives. We run out there, stab. Once you kill the person, you automatically get upgrade to the next weapon.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'll say shoot it, you automatically keep going, and then you respawn, and then it keeps going until the last person or the first person gets like that last weapon again.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it scales up, and then so it like really intensifies quickly, and then it just drops. Like now you have to go and kill someone with a knife while everyone's got weapons, most likely.
That's cool.
It gets like super challenging at that point. But yeah, so in jiu-jitsu though, I think that's where as you start leveling yourself up, I think you have to be really prepared for the day when you don't have that weapon. And I think that's where
sometimes you just have a needler.
Like a needler.
Did anybody actually use a needler who wasn't a kid or like a little child?
Needlers are pretty fun. But I think that's where like Plan C games come into play. Like something where you're not expecting. I think I was telling that Brianna the other day because she was liking, she wanted to play more guard triangles. And there's just some games and tactics where you shouldn't be necessarily like saying, I'm hoping for this to happen. It's more like my initial goal is not working. So I have to fall back to say, how can I still finish the match with being right here? Like, for example, she wants mounted triangles. And I'm like, it's going to be difficult to get, like, you can, but if they start turtling away, then you can take their back, but I wouldn't aim for it. I'd be aiming.
You're saying don't build a game on mounted triangles.
Yeah, don't force your game going. If they're putting their back, I don't know, like my main game would be like hunt their back, find ways to expose their back. And then if for some reason like you're in mount or side control and they're like dead set on not giving their back, then there's an opportunity for mounted triangles. But I wouldn't base my whole training off of just saying I want mounted triangles at that point. Like Dringer Jiu-Jitsu did a really good point about this of training a lot of their newer students to say, just hunt the back. like constantly. And it works really well because if someone's got their back against another white belt person, like it still works very well. So it's like hunting the back is always a good default.
That is a good default. I like that.
But everything falls backwards from there. So as far as energy is concerned, but let's say you go against a blue belt one day who's very, like everyone knows that exposing the back is bad. Now your plan B game now involves more like arm locks and mounted triangles, like more top game stuff that now you couldn't expose her back. So now you have to do submissions. But if they go, oh crap, I'm about to get submitted, there's a good chance that they expose her back in order to run from that submission. So that's more of the plan B game type of stuff. And then, like I said, plan C game is like you being on top and now suddenly you got rolled off. Okay, now you have half guard or a closed guard game, or you got taken down.
The triangles are very committed.
Yeah, they're a committed situation. So I'm just saying it shouldn't be like your whole game, especially no-gi. Triangle should not be your plan A game.
It does seem like they are.
It's not a thing.
A really hard sub to get compared to when we were in the gi.
Mm-hmm.
The gi, I also felt like I had better backups.
Well, that's what I say. Like a couple times I mentioned with the gi, like I can have posture control and upper body control with your lapel. You can climb up to it. But no-gi, you can't climb. Like you got to get head control, which is a huge thing. It's
you got to shoot it seems. And whenever I get caught in triangles, it's because they snapped them right on me.
But it's much easier to say I'm scooting around the back, and as they try to cut angles, you can use that to come backwards and hit triangles. So it's basically penalizing someone to say, either you're going to let me take your back or I'm going to get you in a triangle choke.
I have a cool back thing to show you later and see what you think.
Yeah, so I basically saying with choosing your own weapon, I think it's as you get more experience with the game, I think, like you said, you have to get prepped for the one day you go and get someone who, like, that primary game can be difficult. So it's best to choose weapons that will grant you powers through many different opponents. Like taking someone's back is good against most opponents. I can't think of one person that's don't take their back. Like if someone's bigger than you, take their back. If someone's smaller than you, take their back. If
it does seem like the best place to go.
It's like the best strategy to do it. Same with leg locks. Go for leg locks. I don't know. But I think with bigger people or plus 50 pounds heavier than you, like joint locks start falling. You know what was amazing yesterday? I will give a quick shout out. We had our awesome women's open mat the other day, and we had a lot of great women rolling the mat. So I had Natalie out here. So I ended up picking her up because she wanted to go here, but Lem was at a football game. And she came here and she was shy at first, but then suddenly she was like picking women to roll and whatever. But they all eventually, there's always like an arm lock situation, and they could not pry this 14-year-old girl's hands apart.
Go Natalie.
Like they were just like grips. Like I'm watching people like squirm. And afterwards I'm like, oh my gosh, you had such a good grip. And she goes, yeah, my forearms are going to be sore tomorrow. Like she was just like death gripping.
Natalie's a beast.
But just saying, it doesn't have to be like a huge size difference. Like things like that, like with your limbs, if they're much bigger than you, like, or even just more aware, that's going to be a more difficult hill to climb, which is why a lot of people give more of a leniency of joint locks with bigger people. Now I have 50 pounds or 80 pounds of oomph that I can help to unlock limbs or torque limbs or whatever. Get more horsepower. But I think the art, especially when it comes to FPS or even Jiu-Jitsu, we are teaching people to be technical, and we're giving technical solutions. We're not saying, here, just blast through the situation. You know, like I saw people just literally trying to horsepower grips apart, and it's like, there's no point in a class.
That's how you get hurt too.
Well, and people get hurt as well too. And I think a lot of times when I see that happen, I've never had an instructor or myself. Yep, we're in a situation and you just want to kick as hard as you can, and this will bust it open. Like, it's so weird. Like, even when I'm talking chokes, I'll do things where I'm just like, here's all the technical things, but I'll never say just squeeze as hard as you can.
Yeah,
it's like it's implied.
It can work,
but you are just always giving like the technical way to do things.
Well, you see guys at the highest level, that's what they typically, at least it looks like that's what they're doing, right? Like you don't really see people like just busting through stuff very often.
No.
Except for unless there's a huge like athletic discrepancy.
But we've talked about submissions earlier where I think once everything is set in place and you have no more mechanical things to apply, then that's where the attributes can come in. Like now you're squeezing hard as much as you can, but only after the technical things.
It's almost like once you've got the rear naked choke set.
Yeah.
I guess if it's set, you don't really need to do much. But if they have like a couple fingers underneath, I feel like that's the time that you go, okay, I'm going to put a little bit more into this.
Strength into it.
And then they're just like, shoot, my hand's stuck.
But I think even with your initial thought of selecting the best weapon for the moment, I think it's smart for any person who is now more committed to a game to find multiple avenues of success. So even like my thought process already with like Street Fighter or something like that.
Wait, sure you want to share this?
No, well, it's very light.
Okay.
But just what you're saying, I think once you experience a game, like how fun would it be like every single time like you're grabbing a sniper. I'm so good at this. I take people out. It seems like a waste of your time. There's nothing challenging of it.
I think you touched on this before though. It's is your goal to be like the best you can as fast as you can, or is it to have a really good understanding of this thing, right?
It's weird because I think there were some like Counter-Strike games I think that was like just no scopes, like or not, everyone was snipers, like you didn't have any other weapon. It's just like all snipers. But I think that's the tough part that I think in Jiu-Jitsu, there are some fun games sometimes where it's like only leg locks or only arm locks or only whatever, like it narrows your focus a bit. But that's the weird artistry of it. Someone could just spam this one tactic over and over again, and people have no answers for it. But then I think your interests get just different. I think your interest in the sport goes away quicker.
Oh, yeah.
If you just pick the one thing. If you're just like sniping everyone for a long time with the same thing, I think there's more chances of people getting bored and not into the sport as much. But I think you're right. If you're using it as an artistry thing, Rob's always a good example just because he's, I'm doing this tournament. I'm only going to do omoplatas or roadhouse chokes. Like he's picking things for himself to just like constantly play with and evolve. I get it. It probably won't be like as number one spots for him, but I think his pedigree of success is different than other people's. People want to win first at ADCC or whatever. But I think if your goal is always meddling and it starts burning out, I think you burn out. Like it's something you're not podium that much.
Let me digest that for a second.
If your goal is to just win competitions, and let's say you have a run of competitions that you just keep sucking 2 or 3 in a row, I highly doubt you'll continue with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it seems like the wrong energy.
It's the energy is the difference. I'm just like either.
Versus, are you trying to just get a good understanding?
So that comes down. You're just sitting here complaining about the other person versus your own skill sets. What's it called? Rage quitting.
Rage quitting? Oh, FPS, I was thinking more like external.
Rage quit. Like screw it, I'm done. I'm leaving. Like you want people to rage quit because like look how upset he was. He didn't stay in there to try to work on it. He just left.
I think to start summing this thing up. So it sounds like in this case, because we kind of went a little off to a different topic, but that's okay, as we do in the Grappling Podcast. But it sounds like that scenario is external motivation versus like internal locus of motivation. Maybe you could think about it.
That happens a lot with FPS games. You know, like are you doing it for just fun, or are you doing it to rank up?
I think if you in the long run can't beat the person who has just fun doing the thing.
Yeah.
When I was younger and I was like learning how to do coding and developing and stuff like that, it was cool. I was never going to be great at it. Yeah. I could tell. Like I could tell that I was like forcing myself to do it just to learn it. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I did it, but there's kids who probably got home from school or guys who got home from work who were like, "Oh, I can't wait to work on this thing." Yeah. You'll never beat that guy. Never or it's very hard to beat that person.
Yeah.
I think it applies to jiu-jitsu too. If you can keep jiu-jitsu fun, this is actually a book I'm reading right now, Feel Good Productivity. It talks about if you can make things like feel good and fun, you'll be more likely to do them. So instead of trying to come up with the perfect process and stuff like that, it is good to put thought into your processes, but that's definitely like a soapbox I stand on a lot, especially with the job that I have. But if you can make something fun, everything else falls into place.
I feel like you're telling your kids like laundry or whatever. If you just make it fun, it will be fun.
You know what, though? I actually do apply this to stuff like that.
Yeah.
What would make this more fun?
Yeah.
If I have a bunch of dishes to do, I put a podcast on in my ear.
Yeah.
Or put some music on. If we're all cleaning the house, if I put a little bit of music on, I just increase the fun of this like 10%.
Isn't it called like gamifying it? Maybe a little bit?
There's not really a game to it. It's just more of can we increase the enjoyment of this activity?
Yeah.
Because making things lame, I think has more of a detriment though. So you got to really avoid that. So
here's a good example. We can top this off. That one of the things I think the current teenage culture or culture in general has lost.
Oh, here we go. Everyone, Levi's turning into a boomer. No, it only took him he's only 35 years old.
This is the only thing I'm right on ever. Is that we lost LAN parties for
sure. Oh, yeah, I agree with you on this one.
LAN parties
were legit.
Just in person, like playing Halo, and you had to play like you're playing with your friends.
Yeah, don't be looking at my screen.
Yeah,
but you're looking at my screen.
But it was so great because like you're there in person, hanging out with your friends, and just laughing together, having Mountain Dew and Domino's pizza, and just like enjoying the game, enjoying like the good shots and like, I got you with this or whatever. Imagine the person that was just so set on just winning all the time. That wouldn't be fun.
No.
Like the person who's just like annoyingly like
trying hard, cool.
Trying hard
is cool. Being obsessed about it, not cool.
To say, look at me beating everybody, beating all my friends, is no one's gonna sit there and want to hang out with you if you're gonna turn into this big competition thing. And I think that is a fantastic.
It's like FPS Doug.
FPS Doug. Boom, headshot. I was obsessed with that show. That in jiu-jitsu schools, there are some people that just love the camaraderie of the game together, and there are some people who just like want to constantly win at every single one of their training partners, and everyone's, I want to win too, but you're like obsessively going beyond the energy-wise. Like now you're like wanting to hurt somebody. You're going way too hard. Like you're going to the point where it's actually potentially hurting someone. And I think in like the LAN situation, if you're that upset, that's where people get weird, where you're like, dude, we're just hanging out playing this game.
Oh, yeah. If you have the friend who throws a controller, you're like, what are you doing, dude?
But it's hard because imagine having someone like, I'm just here to play. And it's funny because I think there was something I was watching with the fighting games.
As you're researching your episode?
Super Smash Bros. Or whatever, where it's like people who are in competitive games will sometimes make fun of a game and call it a party game. Oh, it's a party game. Like, it's not really a serious game to get good at. It's just like a fun game. Like, when I'm bored, I just enjoy it.
Because in tabletop games, a party game is like a game that requires like more luck than strategy.
Correct.
You know? Yeah. Which is a fair term.
Yeah.
Yahtzee.
There was some sort of a 4-quadrant thing that was talking about how games can switch from like luck to skill.
Wait, hold on. We should save this topic for another episode because that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And we should think about it a little bit.
Does FPS have much for luck? I don't think so.
I think maybe like more like the chaotic luck that someone happens to walk around the door backwards or something, and you're like,
something like that.
You know, and you get your thing. But yeah, luck. I guess
could see that.
Not as much, maybe.
But yeah, I think we should have had someone on here who was like a super hard FPS player.
Hold on. I played my fair share.
Oh, you did? You're pretty good with it?
I was okay. I was
saying like it'd be
with Halo. Halo was like the only one. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was actually I got okay at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was never like big until being on like in lobbies and sitting there and just like constantly. I think Counter-Strike was the closest one that I had.
I did it when I was 21 because I was a new father and I couldn't really go anywhere and my baby daughter was sleeping.
I had a friend who, I wish we could touch on this subject. I don't know. I don't think either one of us have big skill, like World of Warcraft.
No, I tried
I'm sure
playing.
There's some correlations with it, but
I tried playing. It seems like so cool.
Yeah.
I wish I could have gotten into it.
It just
wasn't my jam.
I never found like a group of people to do it with.
That's it.
I think because also I remember one night specifically it was like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like walking across these big fields, and it's like how much further you have to level up. And I think I was at that point going, this is lame. I wasn't even like that high of a level, like maybe 18 or 19 or something like that. And I was like, this is just boring and lame.
That's about as far as I got.
But I had a friend, I don't really talk to him too much these days. I'm not joking. His in-game time was over a year.
I believe it.
In-game. Like time logged.
People really liked the vanilla, vanilla version.
Wow. Yeah.
Like I actually did try playing the Elysium setup, which was a reboot of vanilla on a different server.
Yeah.
And it was okay. I think you're right though. You need friends, and the difficulty needs to be metered where you like have one person in your party who like specializes in this like crafting of a certain type, so they can give it to the crew, and this person does this other thing. And
it's a little D&D.
If you had like a team of 4 or 5 guys, that could be really cool.
Yeah, I could see that.
I could see myself, hey, if we both make it till 65 or 70, we should start playing WoW.
There we go.
You wanna?
I'm game for that.
I'm saying it now on the podcast. Maybe they'll be really awesome.
So what FPS games could we suggest to all of our fans?
Actually, you know what? I would say for this one, I'm not going to make any recommendations because FPS games are violent. And I don't know, because they are a very violent thing.
If you're a younger
And I don't really play them much anymore, so I don't really know what's out there.
Ask your parents.
Yeah,
before playing
ask your parents.
Games.
If you want to play a good FPS game, I think Halo 1 is a really fun game because it's like the perfect mix of cartoony and carnage. Mm-hmm. And I also like the fact that you have like shields and stuff. It's a fun game. Mm-hmm. It's got a very simple premise to it as far as like how the game is mapped on your controller. It doesn't get too complicated. I just think it's cool. Like it's a good just pick it up and play game.
What was that game on the orange box that was like goofy cartoonish? It was like an FPS game. Not Borderlands.
Borderlands. People liked Borderlands a lot.
There's some other one.
I don't play much FPS games besides I was saying Halo.
Yeah.
I was playing with my son. Just because they require a lot of commitment, and I like games that you can pause and walk away from.
Yeah.
That one, if you pause and walk away from like Call of Duty, you're like just gonna get worse. And
I remember a couple times getting an itch for Counter-Strike, and I would just reinstall it and play for an hour. Like just something where I'm just like, I'm just in the mood to pop in and just play around and move like a little nostalgic type thing, and then move on with it. Because you don't need to require being good. You're just like, it's like walking in as a blue belt, like I got little skills, just enough to just experience the energy a little bit and then move on.
I think that's legit. Oh yeah, we almost had an hour. We should probably. Yes. All right, so to recap some of the things here. Concept 1 was don't move backwards. In jiu-jitsu, keep moving forward or circling most of the time. That'll serve you pretty well. Yeah. 2, focus on funneling people where you want them and don't get funneled yourself. This usually looks like your hand gets it put in the wrong, like they force your hand to a spot that you don't want it, your leg, your base is collapsed, all those types of things. So keep an eye on that and think about how you can funnel them into a bad situation so they have to choose between bad and worse. And then concept 3 was to choose the correct weapon for the situation. I like Levi's note on that. Take the back. Get to the back is like a great weapon. And then from there, maybe develop some other skill sets. If you can take the back and you're good at the legs, you're going to get pretty far. Mm-hmm. But okay, I think that's everything I had.
And then the 2 separate GGs. Good game and get good.
Yeah, that's funny.
Good game, get good. That's always the energy on me, especially with those kind of things. Like I said, like at the end, like it's still a game. We're still there having fun and getting good at things. Yeah, game.
Levi and I are going to go AFK here.
AFK.
All right. You guys, peace out. You can find us on thegrapplingpodcast.com, all of our social media stuff.
Oh, wait, did you have a username that you went by?
Oh, dude, I was making like a new one every week.
Yeah. I had one was like SSJ Yami Vegeta. That's weird. And that one, Lightning Monk, was a good one too. All right, peace out, guys.
Later.